In January of 2026, a promise was made. The Department of Justice released a staggering 3.5 million pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. And with that release came a promise from the very highest levels of government, a promise of transparency, of diligence, and of unimpeachable quality. But today, we're going to examine how that promise was, according to the source material, completely and utterly broken. That was the assurance. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, standing before the public, claimed the work was flawless. The message was unmistakable. You can trust this process. The redactions, he said, had one purpose and one purpose only: to protect the victims. But the evidence we're about to look at, pulled from the source material, suggests that this statement wasn't just inaccurate, it was a profound misrepresentation of what was actually delivered.
So, does the evidence actually back that up? The source material we're examining today tells a very different story. It doesn't point to unimpeachable quality. Instead, it points to a pattern of alleged errors, bizarre inconsistencies, and critical failures so significant that you have to ask a much darker question. Was this just incompetence, or was it intentional?
All right, let's get right into the core of this. The central criticism from the source is aimed squarely at the government's redaction process itself. This isn't just about what was revealed in the files, it's about how it was revealed. It's about what was hidden, what was exposed, and the absolute paradox at the heart of it all. And look, we're not talking about a few isolated typos here. The source argues that these failures form a consistent, troubling pattern that runs through all 3.5 million pages, a pattern so pervasive that it undermines the credibility of the entire release. Just take a look at this. It's almost hard to believe. This shows the name of an Indonesian billionaire, Harry Tano Sudibejo. On the left side of a single line, his name is blacked out. On the right side of the exact same line, it's perfectly readable. The source calls this level of error pathetic, and it's not hard to see why. This is a failure of the most basic, fundamental task they were supposed to be doing. And then there's this, which is just, well, it's bizarre. The source points out that the Department of Justice actually redacted parts of a publicly available Wikipedia article. Words like Italia, DC, and Stone were blacked out. Why would you redact information that anyone on Earth can find with a 5-second Google search? There's no legal reason. It just makes no sense. And this gets right to the heart of the contradiction. Remember the stated goal? To protect victim information and nothing else? But the source notes that in one case, they redacted the name of a reporter who is explicitly noted as not being a victim, while on a different page, they left the name of a potential victim completely exposed. This isn't just a mistake, it's a direct failure of their one stated mission. So, we've seen how the process itself was allegedly a mess. But what about the information that's actually in these files? Because beyond the redaction chaos, the documents contain specific, incredibly damaging allegations against some of the most powerful people on the planet. Over 5,000. That's how many times Donald Trump's name appears in just the searchable parts of this archive. And the source highlights one FBI interview in particular that contains an incredibly serious allegation. Quote, Maxwell presented a victim to Trump. It was made clear that the victim was available. Maxwell said things like, "Oh, I think he likes you. Aren't you lucky? This is great." End quote. The source presents this as a victim allegedly being offered up to a future president. Now, this is important. A confidential human source, a CHS, is not some anonymous tip from the public. This is a cultivated, trusted source who works with the FBI. And according to a CHS report found in these files, this source directly claimed that Donald Trump was, quote, co-opted and compromised by Israeli intelligence. Now, that doesn't make it true, but it elevates it far beyond a simple rumor. Melinda Gates, for her part, has been very public about her feelings toward Jeffrey Epstein. She said she regretted meeting him from the moment she walked in the door, and has strongly suggested that Bill Gates' ongoing relationship with Epstein was a major factor in their divorce. The source then highlights this unverified but deeply unsettling alleged email from Bill Gates to Epstein. It not only mentions a request for antibiotics to surreptitiously give to Melinda, but it also says, quote, "You also made it clear to me that I am not to refer to redacted, as that is another topic that must remain between the two of us. The idea of having secrets with Jeffrey Epstein, secrets that must be kept from your own wife, paints a very dark picture." Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. This is where the source material puts the carefully crafted public statements from these powerful figures right up against what's allegedly in their own documents and emails. And the contradictions are stark.
Let's start with Elon Musk. On one hand, you have his very firm, very public statement. Epstein tried to get me to go to his island and I refused. Simple enough. But then, the source reveals alleged emails. In one, after discussing a potential visit, Musk seems to ask, what day/night will be the wildest party on your island? Now, a refusal and an enthusiastic inquiry, those two things just don't seem to line up.
And the exchange goes deeper. According to the source, after Musk asks about the wildest party, Epstein allegedly replies that the ratio on my island might make Tula uncomfortable, Tula being Musk's wife at the time. The implication of ratio, the source suggests, is a high number of young women. Musk's alleged reply? Ratio is not a problem for Tula. This exchange allegedly took place years after Epstein's first conviction.
And we see a very similar pattern with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. The source shows a clip of him in 2025, passionately declaring that after a brief interaction back in 2005, he vowed he would never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. And yet, the files contain a 2012 email allegedly showing him arranging lunch on Epstein's island a full 7 years after he supposedly made that vow.
So all of this, the bizarre redactions, the shocking allegations, the direct contradictions, it all brings us right back to that central question about the release itself. What was actually going on inside the Department of Justice when they put these files out? And to really drive home just how chaotic this release was, the source points to a single, extremely graphic document detailing an accusation against Donald Trump. This one document wasn't uploaded just once. It was uploaded to the DOJ archive 3 separate times. And here's the kicker. Each version was messed up in a completely different way. The first one redacts the address, but leaves the names. The second one redacts the names, but leaves the address. The third one redacts half the address, but leaves the names. Together, they fail in every way imaginable. They fail to protect anyone, and they fail to follow any logical or legal standard for redaction. It's a total mess. The creator of the source material we've been examining, well, they don't hold back. They argue that the level of failure here is so profound, it's hard to chalk it up to simple human error. The scale of the mistakes, the inconsistencies, it almost defies explanation. And so, in the end, that is a question that hangs over all of this. When you see a system that redacts public Wikipedia pages but exposes potential victims, that can't even redact the same name consistently in the same sentence, that releases 3 different broken versions of the same file, you are left to wonder. Is this just monumental bureaucratic incompetence, or does this chaotic, contradictory release actually serve a different, more deliberate purpose? The files, as they've been presented to the public, don't give us the answer.